This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou.
Greetings to all of our friends around the world, and welcome once again to Kourou, the home of the Ariane family, for today's live broadcast of Arianespace flight number 252. Coming to you live, as always, from the Jupiter Mission Control Building here at the heart of the space base, the center of all the action. As you can see, we're outside on the terrace. The weather's beautiful. It's perfect for flying. And if you take a look out that way, 13 kilometers as the crow flies, you may be able to see Ariane waiting on the pad. Inside Jupiter, Lise Pedersen handling French commentary. Good evening, Lise.
Good evening, Josh. Delighted to be here this evening. Yes, here I am right at the hub of the Mission Control Center. We have our guests and friends around us, and behind us we have the flight desk.
All is go for liftoff. Even the weather is cooperating. Launch time 1918 local. That's in just 13 minutes. We're going to zoom back out to the launch base now to give you a first look at the Ariane 5. If you're unfamiliar with the vehicle, she stands 51 meters tall and is in two parts. They call them composites, an upper and a lower. The two passengers are upper passenger JCSAT-17, the heavier one, separated first, and the lower passenger GEO-KOMPSAT-2B, due to be separated at 31 minutes. Stefan Israel not here tonight. We recorded him earlier.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our third launch of the year, the second one using an Ariane 5 launcher. After our latest launch in Baikonur Cosmodrome, we are back in the CAG for today's mission. Ariane 5 is set to deliver two satellites for two long-standing Asian customers. JCSAT-17 for Sky-Perfect GSAT and GEO-KOMPSAT-2B, also named Sholian-2B, for the KARI, the Korean Aerospace Research Institute. For this 250-second launch of an Ariane vehicle, Ariane 5 will place these satellites into a geostationary transfer orbit. Once in space, JCSAT-17 will separate first, and GEO-KOMPSAT-2B will follow a few minutes later. The mission will last slightly more than 31 minutes. For having entrusted Arianespace with the launch of JCSAT-17, I would like to thank Sky-Perfect GSAT. It is already your 20th bird about to reach the stars thanks to Arianespace, strengthening our close partnership that goes back to JCSAT first, launched in 1989. It also represents the 32nd satellite launched by Arianespace for Japan. Once on location, JCSAT-17 will deliver flexible, high-bandwidth communications to users in Japan and the surrounding region, enabling assured telecommunications continuity during disaster management. For the manufacturing of this next-generation satellite, Arianespace is grateful to Lockheed Martin. JCSAT-17 represents the 47th spacecraft we launched together. For other passengers, I would like to express my gratitude to KARI for having developed Sholian-2B and selected Arianespace to launch this spacecraft. This satellite will be the third satellite we launched for the Korean Space Agency since 2010 and the 8th for South Korea. As part of the GEO-KOMPSAT-2 national program initiated by the Korean government, GEO-KOMPSAT-2B will be dedicated for Earth environment and ocean monitoring missions. It will join GEO-KOMPSAT-2A mission in orbit, launched in 2018 with Ariane 5. Our Ariane 5 number 108 is now ready for liftoff, so enjoy the show.
That was Stéphane Israël, her Chief Executive Officer for Arianespace. And I have the great pleasure of having Luce Fabregatz by my side. She's the Executive Vice President for Missions, Operations and Purchases at Arianespace. Good evening, Luce. Thanks for being with us. You will soon be taking your place in the flight desk behind this pane of glass. And I'd like to know who's going to be with you and what will all of you be doing?
Well, there are 4 of us on the flight desk. We have on my left Roland Lagier, our Chief Technical Officer, who will declare at any moment on the flight worthiness of the launch vehicle. And on my right, our VP for Guiana Operations, Bruno Girard, who is a perfect interface and who knows all the local industry and the authorities here. And we also have the 4th person tonight, a female representative of our marketing department. So we are the flight desk, and in front of us we have representatives from the spacecraft, and on our left the management representatives of CNES and CNES teams for all the range activities.
Thank you. So, as you said, there are 3 different sides to a launch.
Yes, well, a successful launch is a perfect connection between the satellites that need to be ready to tonight, the space base, which provides all the services that will help us track the launcher, to have good weather, to guarantee safety and security for everybody, and last but not least, the launch vehicle. And the launch vehicle is not represented here, but we hear that in our headsets, and information is sent to us directly. So we have information about all these 3 components so that we can make decisions. Everything's running perfectly here. Each component is following its plan as expected, but if there were a difficulty with one of the 3, then we would need to make decisions to continue with operations or to postpone them.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thanks a lot. I won't detain you any further, and I'll give the floor back to Joshua.
Countdown proceeding normally. 8 minutes to go for the Asian charter tonight. Launch window tonight about an hour. Normally standard window 45 minutes, so we have plenty of time. At the top of the broadcast, we always like to present some of the key players who make the mission happen. A look first at the Arianespace program directors. Alina Sentinai for JCSAT-17 and Thierry Pham for GEO-KOMPSAT-2B. Every Arianespace customer has one sole point of contact, the program director. 2 others you'll be seeing today, and especially hearing from one of them, the mission director, Bruno Aaron from Arianespace, alongside the range operations manager, that's Bruno on the left, a.k.a. the DDO, Jacques Mongis, tonight from CNES. You'll be hearing a lot of him tonight because he makes all the key announcements.
Attention pour la séquence finale lanceur.
He's going to call out the 7-minute mark.
Top, H0 moins 7 minutes.
Okay.
Et voilà, comme vous venez de l'entendre, nous venons d'entrer dans la séquence.
We have just started the synchronized sequence. For the synchronized sequence to be initiated, all the parameters that you can see on the board behind me must be green. The information you have there is about the launcher, the satellites, and all the other requirements before liftoff. We will be lifting off in approximately 6 minutes. All the indicators are green. Tonight's satellites arrived in French Guiana about a month ago. Let's share some of the highlights with you.
The launch campaign started on the 6th of January with the arrival of the lower satellite, GEO-KOMPSAT-2B, at Cayenne Félix-Éboué Airport and its transportation to the S5C preparation payload facilities. Standalone activities were performed until the 24th, day of its transfer to the hazardous payload facilities S5B for the propellant loading operations. The arrival of the upper satellite JCSAT-17 at Félix-Éboué Airport was on the 16th of January, in the morning of the successful Arianespace previous flight VA251. It was immediately transported to the S5C preparation payload facilities. The fit check started with its flight adapter right after on the 17th. Then, JCSAT-17 carried out its health checks until the 25th, day of its transfer to the hazardous payload facility S5A.
The launcher campaign started on the 8th of January for integration and control operations in the launcher integration building. The launcher was then transferred to the final assembly building on the 30th of January. The Ariane Group, Arianespace and ground industry team, totaling roughly 300 people, then worked intensely to be on schedule for this Ariane 5 launch in its ECA version. Every day, a progress meeting with industry leaders helps review the day's operations and those scheduled for the next day. This meeting also helps quickly address potential difficulties encountered during the day.
Combined operations plan with launcher has started for JCSAT-17 on Monday, the 3rd of February, by the flight mating onto its payload adapter. It has been transferred the day after to the launcher assembly building called the BAF, hoisted onto the Silda 5 and encapsulated under the fairing on the 6th. GEO-KOMPSAT-2B entered the combined operations plan on the 5th by the flight mating onto its payload adapter. The satellite was then transferred to the BAF, hoisted and matted to the launch vehicle Ariane 5, waiting for the arrival the day after of its co-passenger. On Saturday, the 8th, the upper composite with JCSAT-17 encapsulated GEO-KOMPSAT-2B already seated on the launch vehicle.
On Friday, the Launch Readiness Review authorized us to carry out final operations and transfer the launch vehicle to the launch zone on D-1. The synchronized sequence will begin at T-7 minutes, during which all operations will be carried out automatically until liftoff.
Third launch of the year for Arianespace, the second from Kourou. 11 days ago, Arianespace launched the Soyuz from Baikonur with 34 OneWeb satellites. That was the 50th Arianespace Soyuz launch. Lise has joined us here in the terrace. Glad to have you.
Nice to join you, Josh.
And you're just in time because you got to tell us all about the Launch Management Center.
Well, yes, the teams are in the CDL-3, which is only less than 3 kilometers away from the launcher, reminding you that we here are 13 kilometers away. So they are very near to where the action is taking place. And they have been working since very early this morning, Josh. In fact, the work is almost pretty much done by now.
But that doesn't mean it has not been a very busy day, because the launch management teams have been working under the direction of Launch Complex Operations Manager. Today, Philippe Ers, you heard from him in the film before. There are actually two teams up there. One is responsible for executing the flight chronology, and the other for verification of the flight worthiness of the Ariane 5 vehicle.
And located so near to the pad, the teams are actually, the whole building is put into autonomous mode half an hour before H0, made airtight and becomes entirely autonomous.
Final countdown actually began at 7:55 this morning. That's 11 hours ago. Makes for a long day. 1 hour later for the satellites, 7:55 for the launcher, of course. The inertial measurement, geometric units, and safeguard subsystem are all switched on. The onboard computers were turned on at noon, and the flight program was loaded at that time. Filling the lower stage began about 2:40 p.m., an hour later for the upper stage.
And one of the very last things you will see is when the yellow arms disconnect. That's 5 seconds before liftoff. Those arms are not there to hold up the launcher. They're there to fill Ariane's upper stage right up to the very last moment. So watch out for those yellow arms when they disconnect.
The electrical power supply has now been switched from the ground to onboard. That's one of the last things on the list, so you can see what's happening. Ariane 5 becoming autonomous little by little as power passing from the ground computers, which controls everything now, to the onboard computers, which will control everything afterward. And here in Jupiter, the invited guests have begun to make their way down here onto the terraces. Come on and we can get a shot of them. There's one terrace down here, there's another one on the other side. See them down there. They're going to have a fine view of the liftoff.
Absolutely, and of course those who aren't lucky enough
à tous de
to
DDO.
be here.
Attention pour moins une minute.
DDO about to announce the 1 minute mark. So those who aren't lucky enough to be here at the Jupiter Center, a lot of people in Kourou love to simply hang out at the beach. That's one of the best places from which to watch the liftoff.
And we're into the final 60 seconds. Give us a chance to say hi to all of our friends, people watching Japan and Korea, our friends at Sky Perfect JSAT, at KARI, at Lockheed Martin in Denver. Hello to all of you. To Arianespace in Evry, and to the local French Guiana sites, to our industrial partners, ISA and CNES, and to all of you following on the internet.
We're going to cut away now. We wish you a wonderful launch, and we'll be back with you in just over 1 minute. Enjoy the launch.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage moteur Vulcain. Allumage EAP et décollage VA252. Propulsion nominale.
Well, there we go. Gosh, I have
Tous les
to say, it is
paramètres
always
bord
an
sont
extremely
normaux.
moving experience to watch this. It's my second live, but my goodness, it is something else, isn't it, Josh? You've been doing this for years.
I've never seen one from the terrace here. We're just now at plus 50 seconds getting the noise of the liftoff with that delay.
There you go. I don't know if you can hear us, but here we go. And yeah, we have, my goodness, this is a very loud noise. So we have our launcher has passed Mach 1 and it is now moving faster than the speed of sound. Josh.
707
Paramètres bord normaux, trajectoire nominale.
I hope you can hear me. We need a lot of push, and we have a lot of push, and you can hear it. 5 tons of fuel burning every second. That's 2.5 tons burning every second in each booster. Ariane 5 now following the program in the onboard computer, which gives all the orders, including the stage separations. We'll soon start to see those in about 30 seconds. We are now in the first of 4 flight phases. The first 3 are powered, the last is not, and we'll be describing each in turn so you can follow Ariane on her mission. Right now, the first flight phase, the single first stage engine and the 2 boosters are burning. You can see that on the animation on the screen, and the boosters will burn for just over 2 minutes, and you'll hear that from the DDO.
So, yes, the boosters will have basically got rid of all their propellant in just over 2 minutes. I'm looking at the screen to check, obviously, the time. And so that will then follow the basic rule in spaceflight, which is, well, you've got to share the most weight fast as possible so you can move faster and get your mission accomplished. So we'll be getting rid of those boosters right now. Here we go. Waiting for confirmation.
You see it on the screen.
Séparation des étages, accélérateur
You see what it looks like up there? There is another, there are of course 2 boosters. There's one falling away out of camera range on the port side of the vehicle. They fall into a protected area about 500 kilometers from shore. French Guiana in part selected as a launch base because of the opening on the water, launches posing no threat to the local land population.
So if you take a look at the bottom of your screen, on the left you will see the altitude and on the right you'll see the speed. So we are currently going at a speed, our launch is going at a speed of just over 2 kilometers a second, and we are at an altitude of 100 kilometers. This is the crucial altitude, isn't it, Josh? Because it's the altitude where there is no more heat or friction to bother our passengers. What's going to happen?
Do you know the altitude we need, the speed, I'm sorry, we need to separate a satellite?
I think it's 9 kilometers a second.
Yes, it is. Do you know why?
Tell me why, Josh.
It's because the satellites are going into geostationary orbit, and that is the speed, roughly, at which the Earth turns. And the geostationary orbit means the satellites are hovering over one particular point on the Earth, Korea or Japan in this case, so flying at the same speed. Let me show you. You're the Earth, and I'm the satellite, all right? You start turning.
Okay.
All right. See, if you turn to the same speed, I say with you, that's geostationary orbit.
So here we have it, and we have in the meantime, we have now got rid of the fairing, and our satellite is our top satellite. The one in the upper position is now exposed to space.
Arianespace, part of the European space effort, which is a 3-way affair. Arianespace, the CNES, the French Space Agency, and ESA, the European Space Agency. Briefly, Arianespace is in charge of operating the family of launch vehicles and marketing the launch services of the program, ESA funding the programs, and CNES coordinating space-based activities.
And here you can see on your screens Marianne Claire. She is the new head of the CSG, and it's the first time that a woman has taken on this position. She is in charge of what the French call sauvegarde, in charge of infrastructures and safety, and she will also be in charge of renovating the CSG. This hasn't happened in 20 years since Ariane 5.
We have a series of films for you this evening on the customers. We're going to go to the first one, a first look at our first customer, JCSAT-17.
Hello, my name is Alina Centenay, and I'm the JCSAT-17 Program Director for Arianespace. JCSAT-17 is positioned on top of the double launch structure named SILDA and below the fairing. JCSAT-17 will be the 21st Sky-Perfect JSAT satellite to be launched by Arianespace. Sky-Perfect JSAT Corporation is a leader in the converging fields of broadcasting and communications. Since the launch of JCSAT-1 in 1989, Sky-Perfect JSAT Corporation and Arianespace have developed a strong relationship of mutual trust. Now I would like to introduce Mr. Fujita, the JCSAT-17 Program Manager.
Hi, Alina.
Fujita-san, could you introduce JCSAT-17?
Yes. JSAT-17 is a communication satellite that provides mobile communications over Japan and the surrounding region by using S-band and C-band transponders. It also provides communications by Ku-band. JSAT-17 has very flexible capabilities through the use of a digital channelizer and beamformer in order to meet various demands of the end user.
Can you tell us more about the JCSAT-17 program?
Since the program kickoff, Lockheed Martin and JSAT have been working so hard with a very good relationship toward the delivery at the launch site. Additionally, the launch campaign has been very smooth thanks to collaboration between Arianespace and Lockheed Martin. Now I'm so pleased and very excited that we are here today.
Thank you very much for the insight, and we'll be back later in the video transmission.
All right, our stage is set. You met all the key players. What do you say? It's back to the booth for us.
Back to the booth. But a reminder for those of you who are joining us tonight. So this is Arianespace flight VA252. 2 passengers tonight, JCSAT-17 and GEO-KOMPSAT-2B. Let's find out more about our second passenger from project manager Thierry Ferme.
We are proud to have been selected by KARI to launch the 2 spacecraft of the 2 GEO-KOMPSAT-2 series of civilian geostationary orbiting satellites, GEO-KOMPSAT-2A and GEO-KOMPSAT-2B, which is an important national program for the country. Arianespace successfully lofted GEO-KOMPSAT-2A in December 2018, which today is busy gathering data on meteorological conditions at the Earth's surface. GEO-KOMPSAT-2B is riding in Ariane 5's lower payload position, and its deployment into geostationary transfer orbit will occur approximately 31 minutes into the missions. It has been a great pleasure to manage both GEO-KOMPSAT-2 missions since KARI's contract signature with Arianespace in 2015. And specifically, I would like to thank KARI for its confidence in Arianespace, and in particular, Dr. Jae Dong Choi, Program Director, and Dr. Ho Young Lee, the Launcher Interface Manager, who always adopted constructive approach throughout the preparation for these missions. My thanks also go to the CNES teams at the spaceport, and of course, special thanks to all my colleagues from Arianespace involved in the preparation of flight VA252. I wish all the best to GEO-KOMPSAT-2B.
All right, we're back in the booth. KARI, the Korean Aerospace Research Institute, a government group. In 2015, it signed with Arianespace to launch both GEO-KOMPSAT-2A and 2B. Arianespace launched 2A in December of 2018, making this the second KARI satellite orbited by Arianespace and the 8th launched for the nation of Korea. We're awaiting confirmation of the cutoff of lower stage, and you have it on the animation. You saw the engine shut down, and there is separation. And you'll watch the nozzle, and it lights up. There you have ignition of the upper stage. You see the lower stage falling back into the Gulf of Guinea. These 3 orders, extinction and separation of the lower stage and ignition of the upper stage, coming on time, given by the onboard computer in about 13 seconds. Our mass now, 29 tons, down from the original 775, the DDO saying everything is okay on board. We're now into the 3rd and final powered flight phase. That's the single upper stage engine burning, and will burn until plus 2521, 16 minutes, roughly. The job of the upper stage is to take the satellites to their injection point, position them for separation, and then release them. That's its propulsion role, but she also has a second role, and that comes during Ariane 5's ballistics phase, which comes later in the flight, in between satellite separation. We'll have more on that coming up. We're being followed now by our first downrange tracking station, Natal, over the border in Brazil, run by the Brazilian Air Force. We're going to have another look now, coming up on our second passenger, GEO-KOMPSAT-2B. You'll be hearing from KARI's Satellite Program Director.
GEO-KOMPSAT-2 program is a national program of the Korean government to develop and operate two civilian GEO satellite, GEO-KOMPSAT-2A and 2B. GEO-KOMPSAT-2B satellite was also developed by KARI with the support of the Ministry of Science and ICT, Ministry of Environment, and Ministry of Ocean and Fisheries as a 10-year mission life, like the GEO-KOMPSAT-2A satellite. GEO-KOMPSAT-2B satellite has two types of payload for observing the atmospheric environment and marine environment around the Korean peninsula. The first payload is an environment payload and ultra-precision optical system for observing fine dust and other materials in the air. It will observe 20 kinds of important information from Japan in the east to northern Indonesia in the west. It will also trace the migration paths of fine dust to analyze scientifically the impact of overseas dust on the domestic atmospheric environment of Korea. The information can be used for establishment of air quality improvement policies, and also it carries the world's first geo-orbit environment observation payload. The second payload will be used for the observing marine disaster, and performance of GK2B has been significantly improved in terms of resolution from 500 meters to 250 meters compared to Cheolyan-1 launched in 2010. It will contribute to the protection of the marine environment and management of marine resources by monitoring the dumping of pollutants into the sea and the change in seawater quality. Moreover, it can be widely used for maritime safety and defense activities by observing sea currents and sea fogs. Finally, we expect the launching of GK2B following GK2A to establish a world-class service system for the observation of the meteorological, atmospheric, and oceanic conditions of the Korean peninsula. Thank you, Arianespace and CNES CSAT teams, and thanks to all of GK2 program members.
GEO-KOMPSAT-2B arrived here in French Guiana on January 6th and was transferred to the payload preparation facilities here at the base for checks. They're called the S5 buildings. Ariane 5, the DDO is continuing to say all is perfect on board, no problems. Arianespace launched Korea's first satellite in 1992. That was KITSAT, 40 kilos. Went up on an Ariane 4. KITSAT-B went up the year after. Arianespace also launched the first KARI satellite in 2010. That's KOMPS-1, I think it was mentioned. A telecom ocean observation and weather satellite. It also orbited KoreaSats for Korea Telecom. And the new Vega C, set to orbit another KOMPSAT in the years ahead. KOMPSAT-2A has a weather payload and a space environment payload. 2B, an Earth environment payload, and an ocean monitoring payload. We mentioned the CSG, the world's only dedicated commercial space base. 3 campaigns have been going on at once here, along with this Ariane launch. Campaigns for the next Soyuz and Vega launches taking place at the same time. CSG chosen as a site in 1964 because of one key advantage, and you can guess what that is: a large opening on the water. 50 kilometers of coastline. A musical interlude now for more on GEO-KOMPSAT-2B.
Paramètres bord nominaux, trajectoire nominale.
We are now being picked up by our next downrange tracking station, Ascension Island. That's a tiny island in the South Atlantic, 10 square kilometers, an antenna of 5 meters. NASA had a station there till 1989 and closed it when their TDRS program began, and ESA built its own station. And I do believe Ascension Island was the first Earth station to hear Neil Armstrong say, "Tranquility Base here, the Eagle has landed," on the Apollo 11 flight. 8 minutes to go in the upper stage burn. You know, of course, Europe is developing the successor to Ariane 5. Ariane 6 will be a more market-driven vehicle to meet customer needs and market changes, including electrical propulsion. Ariane 6 will have shorter production times, also more streamlined launch campaigns. I think they're going to be cut in half, from 30 to 15 days. First launch set for the end of this year, and the work on the base and the ground segment is well advanced. The new pad is 2.5 times as big as the Soyuz pad, going up between the Soyuz and Ariane 5 pads, if you know the geography around here. So rendezvous, before the year is out, right here. We were picked up by our next downrange station at Libreville in Gabon. A look at the Sky Perfect group now in our next film.
What the Sky Perfect JSAT group values the most as a satellite operator is to be connected anytime, anywhere. We operate and control geostationary satellites at 36,000 kilometers from the Yokohama Satellite Control Center and 2 other control centers nationwide. We use geostationary satellites to provide stable communications in the air and sea. In order to provide prompt rescue and support during and after disasters, it is necessary to secure quick communication. Satellite communication is a big asset. In addition, we have partnered with low Earth orbit satellite operators, and from JAXA, we acquired small demonstration satellites. We will enter into the sensing business that collects and uses space data. For image analysis, we provide intelligence to make informed decisions in partnership with Planet Labs Incorporated, Orbital Insight Incorporated, and others. Satellite drones connecting anywhere with satellite communication. Active in situations where communication has been difficult. We will combine these technologies to provide services in a wide range of fields. We invested in Chal Energy Incorporated, a wind power company. We will work on areas where power and communication infrastructures are not in place. We are researching an AI that analyzes data being sent by ships to the Japan Meteorological Agency. The application Kumolog was born. Observe clouds from photos and learn about the weather in a fun way. Began considering a partnership with Gitai Incorporated, who develops robots that work in space by remote control from Earth. We will create a future where robots work instead of astronauts. Space debris has become a global issue. We will also work to find solutions. Space farther than geostationary satellites. Sky Perfect JSAT is testing the communication infrastructure, which is essential when we enter new territories. We are also actively promoting co-creation with external partners in order to respond to the higher values required in the recent times. Space for your smile. Sky Perfect JSAT Group.
The expected satellite lifetimes, 15 years for JCSAT, 10 for KOMPSAT. These things are studied, of course, very extensively, but sometimes you get surprises. Throughout Ariane's 40 years, we've launched all types of missions, and I'm remembering one particular, XMM Newton, if you remember that, launched in 1999 on the first commercial Ariane 5. Its mission was to look for invisible rays, high-frequency rays. Life expectancy was 2 years. And it's still going strong 20 years later. All its original systems are working, no backups. Solar panels still generating power, apparently more than they need. It has amazed everybody. It just doesn't want to retire. It discovered apparently a new black hole. Astronomers are still using it. ESA says they may prolong its life till 2024. I mention that because it makes you see how important French Guiana is for Europe, despite its being 7,000 kilometers away. The Guiana Space Center offers an independent access to space. A look now at JCSAT-17's first maneuvers after separation.
We are back with Mr. Fujita, the JCSAT-17 program manager. After separation, your team has different milestones before putting JCSAT-17 in service. Can you tell us what are the next steps?
Once the spacecraft is separated from the launch vehicle, we'll begin maneuvers to get the spacecraft to the geostationary orbit, which will take a week or so. Next, the solar array and the very large 18-meter reflector will be deployed. Those deployment operations will be exciting events for sure. Then we'll proceed with in-orbit testing in order to confirm the satellite functionalities after the launch environment. Now I'd like to thank all parties involved in this program for their contributions over years. Especially, I would like to thank Lockheed Martin for developing this high-quality satellite, and I would like to thank Arianespace for their continued and dedicated support to JSAT.
Thank you very much for your nice words. I wish all the best to JCSAT-17 and the teams involved in the launch.
During the film, we were picked up by our final downrange tracking station in Malindi in Kenya. It will see the upper stage burnout and satellite separations. When Ariane 5 began service in 1996, she needed a new station, so we opened a fifth for Ariane 5's second launch in 97. Malindi, you may remember, also the site of the San Marco launch pad, the Italian launch project that functioned between 1964 and 1988 and was the precursor of Vega. Some numbers for you. Total payload mass tonight, 10 tons. Tonight is the 317th mission performed by the Ariane family, the 252nd on an Ariane, the 108th on an Ariane 5. JCSAT-17 and GEO-KOMPSAT-2B are the 653rd and 54th satellites to be launched by Arianespace. And before tonight, 380 geostationary satellites, both main and auxiliary payloads, have been orbited by Arianespace. Awaiting shutdown of the upper stage burn, you will see the nozzle, the blue flame, shut down, and then you will hear the DDO confirm the milestone in about 5 or 6 seconds, cut off to at 25:21.
Extinction de l'étage supérieur cryotechnique.
And the DDO has confirmed it. Ariane uses up her onboard fuel during the flight, becoming lighter, but as her push remains the same, the result is acceleration. However, she has reached maximum speed, as you can see on the bottom right, 9.3 kilometers per second. And now you'll see her start to slow down. When she separates JCSAT, her speed will be 9.1 kilometers. GEO-KOMPSAT-2B at plus 3106.
Manœuvre d'orientation au profit du satellite
JSAT-17 per second. Going to take a look now at the Quick Look Telemetry Display Control Center, called the CVI. It's on a hill just behind us here in Jupiter. These teams have all the means for receiving, processing, storing, and analyzing all the data coming in from the ground stations along Ariane's flight path. These data are collected by the 10-meter dish at the Montagne des Pères, altitude 133 meters. Remember, we talked about the downrange stations that follow the launcher. Right now, these teams are following all the key flight data coming in, and they're reporting the flight status of the launcher back to the teams here in Jupiter. The announcements you hear made by the DDO come from the CVI. The information goes to them first, and they relay it to Jupiter and to the flight desk and to the launch complex operations. All part of the great information flow from points across the base back to Jupiter here. JCSAT-17 due for separation at plus 2737, just under 40 seconds. Latest in the long association between Arianespace and Sky Perfect JSAT. 21st Sky Perfect JSAT satellite to be launched.
La phase balistique se poursuit nominalement.
Also a long partnership between Sky Perfect JSAT and Lockheed Martin. The 8th satellite between them, the 47th Lockheed Martin satellite to be launched by Arianespace. as we near confirmation from the DDO on separation. Due in a few seconds. Always a moment of high concentration, no matter how much experience you have. Teams have gone through these procedures before, but it does call for tremendous focus. There's
Séparation du satellite JCSAT-17.
And there you have confirmation by the DDO. And our first good news, you notice people here in Jupiter very politely holding their applause because the mission is not over. We still have to separate our final passenger, GEO-KOMPSAT-2B. That's coming up in about 4 minutes. You see our first passenger pushed away by a series of springs, pushes her away from the mothership, starting her life. JCSAT-17 using the new Lockheed Martin 2100 bus for the first time, offering flexible solar arrays. We heard this morning, instead of unfolding, they were rolled up like a window shade. The advantage, making them lighter, more compact, able to hold more solar cells per kilos. It's the first big deployment after the launch, and we know the Lockheed Martin engineers will be watching that part of the layups very carefully. Coming up on SILD separation in about a minute, we want to mention there's been a slight loss of telemetry signal today. That's quite normal. It's not a problem. Sometimes it happens due to the launcher's position. There's a brief blackout at the ground stations. Tonight there was a loss of signal about a minute between Natal and Ascension, and 20 seconds between Ascension and Libreville. Again, quite normal. We don't lose the information. It's stored on board, and the vehicle equipment bay is programmed to record the data it would normally be sending down and to start sending the data when the signal has returned. SILDA separation. SILDA is the black bell-shaped structure which allows us to carry a second passenger. Separation coming right on time over the Indian Ocean, revealing our lower passenger, GEO-KOMPSAT. We are still in what they call the coasting phase, also known as the free flying phase. What's happening deserves a bit of explanations. We have to separate the two satellites and the SILDA, of course, in 3 different directions, also at 3 different altitudes. To do this, the composite is being maneuvered and spun in a series of operations. They range in time from a few seconds to a few minutes. The attitude and control system uses small thrusters to do this. You might see them popping on and off on the animation on the screen. There are 12 of them in all, 4 clusters of 3 on the outside of the upper stage. Now, these thrusters orient the composite in the directions required by the first satellite, then they separate it. Then they start a second series of moves to orient and separate the SILDA, and we saw those operations, and they're doing the same now for the lower passenger. They can move the composite in any direction. That's what the upper stage is doing right now. In the trade, sometimes they call it a space ballet. All this, of course, programmed in advance. The information is in the onboard computer. The launcher knows precisely what it has to do, where it is, and where it's going at all times. 15 seconds to go until separation of our second passenger. Again, a moment of high concentration here in Jupiter. No doubt at KARI and elsewhere where the technicians and operationals are monitoring their satellite's progress. Tonight representing years of work for many of these people.
Séparation du satellite GEO-KOMPSAT-2B.
So, the final good news. You can hear the applause now from the people in Jupiter. Ariane 5 delivering her second passenger, GEO-KOMPSAT-2B, over the Indian Ocean. So, for the rather focused moments just minutes ago, and the concentrated faces, you can see the change here in Jupiter. Very buoyant all across the Space Center, and at all the posts where people are following the launcher and the satellite. So congratulations to all the teams. We are waiting now for the traditional post-separation speeches. The podium being set up. We'll be hearing from Luce Fabriguet, Arianespace, Eiichi Yonekura of SkyPerfect JSAT, Guy Budelschis from Lockheed Martin, Byung-Chun Jong of Korea's Ministry of Science. Before that, we're going to go to a replay of the liftoff, and you can once again experience all the emotions of the launch that happened half an hour ago. see we have cameras at several posts, observation posts here at the base. There are about half a dozen of them. And you'll be able to see all the different shots, some closer to the pad, some farther away. While you're watching, how about a quiz question? See if you can get this. Quiz question number 252 from Aerospace. You ready? What is the record mass that an Ariane launcher has put into orbit? Rather easy question. Again, Arianespace quiz question 252. What's the record mass an Ariane launcher has put into orbit? Give you a minute to think about it. The minute is over. 2 answers. Because it happened twice. 2 ATV missions, each launched over 20 tons. 20,063 kilos and 20,274 kilos. They were missions, of course, to the International Space Station. ATV-3 in 2012 and ATV-4 in 2014. If you got that, 20 tons, you got any of those answers, give yourself a round of applause. And you will get to hear the speeches that are coming up. Luce Fabricant making her way to the podium.
Young Moon Choi, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. On behalf of Arianespace and our teams, I am thrilled to announce that JCSAT-17 and GEO-KOMPSAT-2B have been injected as planned into their targeted orbit. For the second Ariane 5 launch of the year, our heavyweight vehicle has performed flawlessly once again. Congratulations to all for a job well done. Let me first express my thanks and gratitude to our customer for the launch of JCSAT-17, Sky Perfect GSAT Corporation. Tonight, we celebrate the 20th satellite launch together. JCSAT-1 was orbited by an Ariane 4 in 1989. Let me express my warmest thanks to Mr. Eiichi Yonekura, Sky Perfect GSAT President and CEO, and to Mr. Kiyoshiro Omatsuzawa, the Board Director of Sky Perfect GSAT, as well as to their team, your teams and partners, for being with us in French Guiana tonight. It's a long way for you from Tokyo. JCSAT-17 will enhance the continuity of communications across Japan and the surrounding area, including during disaster relief efforts, which is very well aligned with Arianespace's motto, space at the service of a better life on Earth. Arianespace maintains a relationship of trust with Japanese operators and public authorities forged since the opening of our Tokyo office in 1986. As a result, JCSAT-17 is the 32nd satellite already we have launched for Japan. And we are looking forward to welcoming Sky Perfect GSAT again here at the European Spaceport in the future and continuing this very fruitful partnership. Thank you for your confidence. Arigato. A successful launch also involves a team of professionals from the satellite manufacturer. And I want to congratulate Lockheed Martin Space, manufacturer of the state-of-the-art JCSAT-17 spacecraft. JCSAT-17 marks the 47th Lockheed Martin satellite launched by Arianespace. And I would like to thank Mr. Timothy Gasparini and Mr. Guy Bottleshears, Vice President Communication Satellite Solutions at Lockheed Martin Space, who are here, both of them are here with us tonight. Thank you for a great partnership. The second passenger to be deployed during tonight's launch sequence is another spacecraft dedicated to a novel international mission, GEO-KOMPSAT-2B. I want to offer my congratulations to our other customer and partner of today's Ariane 5 launch, the Korean Aerospace Research Institute, KARI. Tonight, we celebrate our third mission together, and Arianespace is honored to have orbited both satellites of the GEO-KOMPSAT-2 program. GEO-KOMPSAT-2A in December 2018, and tonight, GEO-KOMPSAT-2B. The GEO-KOMPSAT-2 satellites are key elements of Korea's program for environmental monitoring, and I want to express my gratitude to the Ministry of Science and ICT of the Republic of Korea for entrusting this spacecraft to Arianespace. 감사합니다. In particular, I want to recognize Vice Minister Byung-seon for joining us in witnessing this success. My sincere congratulations go also to KARI for having successfully designed and built this state-of-the-art satellite. I want to acknowledge KARI's president, Mr. Cheol O. Lim, who has come to Europe's spaceport for tonight's mission. Thank you for being here. Arianespace is looking forward to working with you again. We are proud of this strong relationship with South Korea. Space has been at the heart of the relationship between Korea and France, and tonight's mission involves the 8th satellite we have launched for your country. Finally, I would like to express my deepest consideration to His Excellency Young Moon Choi, Ambassador to the Republic of Korea in France, for honoring us with his presence tonight. With this third launch of 2020, Arianespace has further reinforced its role as a reliable and flexible partner for every mission to every orbit. Flight VA252 is the second of as many as 5 Ariane 5 dual launches planned in 2020, all of them dedicated to commercial and export customers. Let me now congratulate Arianespace partners who played their part in this success, ESA and all the member states of the Ariane program, whose support is awesome and essential, Ariane Group, the Ariane 5's prime and primary shareholder of Arianespace, and notably to its CEO, André Hubert-Roussel, who is also with us tonight, CNES, the Ariane 5's design authority and our daily partner here at CSG, and our contractors in French Guiana, and their employees working here at the launch facility and in Europe. And of course, let me also pay a sincere tribute to my colleagues, Arianespace employees, for this new success. I'm very proud to be part of a great team. I would now like to welcome our customers and partners, starting with SkyPerfect JSAT. Mr. Yonekura, the microphone is yours.
Bonsoir, Madame et Monsieur. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of SkyPerfect JSAT Group, I'd like to take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to all of people here, from the KNES, the ESA, the Lockheed Martin, and of course Arianespace, who have been working very hard and supporting and contributing to the today's success launch of the JCSAT-17 and GEO-KOMPSAT-2B. Of course, it will take a couple of months, another maybe months for us to make our satellite in services. So we have to continue to concentration on taking the necessary further procedure until the mission is completed. Having said that, I'd like to I'd like to celebrate together with you tonight our successful launch. The last year 2019, it was the 20th anniversary of SkyPerfect JSAT Group. Our launched very first satellite in 1989 at the same place here, the Ariane's Guiana Space Center. Then this year, 2020, including this JCSAT-17, we are going to have 20 satellites in operation. Although we are the cooperation in private sector, but we're proud of our experience and expertise as the only one corporation in Japan who own and operate 20 satellites for past 2 decades. And thank you again, Ruth-san. The road to reach to the current status have not been always well-paved one. However, because of the Arianespace strong leadership and teamwork there, we can keep the reputation in the market. Thank you again. And also, Guy-san, thank you very much, the Guy-san and your team of the Lockheed Martin. We always trust your technology. We always rely on your reputation and experience. I really appreciate. But Guy-san, don't be relaxed, because we have to make our vehicle in service. So let's try to keep the attention and concentration for a while. Okay. And also, I'd like to say congratulations to people from the Korea, including His Excellency Ambassador Choi and Vice Minister John and President Lim of the Korean Aerospace, the Research Institute. Thank you very much. And it is maybe the good opportunity for us to know each other. So why don't we seek opportunity to work together so that we may strengthen our relationship between Korea and Japan through the business field in space. Finally, thank you very much again, and I really appreciate your all of the people, the effort for tonight, the launching, and I'd like to say thank you, 대단히 감사합니다, merci beaucoup, and I cannot speak Korean, but 축하합니다. And let's enjoy tonight, and let's celebrate and drink a lot and have a nice night. Thank you very much.
First off, I would like to say thank you. What a wonderful night. What a wonderful ride. I just couldn't imagine being happier right now. I just want to say a very warm thank you to Arianespace, to KNES, and to ESA for taking our satellite that we have worked so hard on for many years and taking such good care of it, taking it into space where it belongs, and releasing it so that it may start its journey. And it has been a long journey for us, but I just want to say how proud we are at Lockheed Martin to be able to deliver one of the largest and most technologically advanced satellites to our customer, and we are just so honored that you have entrusted us with that large responsibility. And we are extremely pleased to continue the long relationship we've had. The 8th satellite for Sky Perfect JSAT, and the relationship that we now have with DOCOMO, and now 47th satellite launched with Arianespace. Each one is just as emotional. So thank you again. But as we said, our work is, in fact, we look forward to going through initial acquisition, deploying our solar arrays, moving our satellite out into its orbital position, deploying the very large 18-meter Harris reflector, and then doing all of our payload checkout so that we may turn our satellite over to JSAT, and so that it may serve you and your customers and the people of Japan for many, many, many years to come. Thank you.
Congratulations on this success of this tonight mission. I'm Byung-Sun Jang, and Vice Minister of the Ministry of Science and ICT Korea. I'm deeply pleased to witness the successful launch of GEO-KOMPSAT-2B, which has been developed since 2011. and to measure the density of pollutants such as particulate matter in East Asia, also to observe the lead tide in East Asia. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone in Arianespace, especially the Luce Fabregat, the Vice CEO, Arianespace, and also I'd like to extend this congratulations to JCSAT-17 and the President and CEO, Sky Perfect JSAT, Mr. Kourou. You mentioned that now we have good opportunity to collaborate each other. And I think always Japan is our good partner, so I'm expecting more concrete collaboration in the future. And also I'm very grateful to our researchers at KARI and everyone involved for all the hard work to successfully develop GEO-KOMPSAT-2B. Your work has greatly contributed to the welfare of our people, and furthermore, your contribution will contribute to the enrichment of our people's welfare. And you are all worthy to take pride for it, and let me express my deepest appreciation again. I'm sincerely looking forward to meaningful outcome, which our GEO-KOMPSAT-2B will make in the future. We believe that the GEO-KOMPSAT-2B will be an invaluable asset in solving various environment issues of humankind, especially addressing particulate matter in East Asia. The air and ocean environment data from GEO-KOMPSAT-2B is expected to significantly help relieve people from breathing concerns and minimizing the damage from the marine disasters. After the successful launch, it will take some time for the satellite to reach and rest and the targeted orbit and to be up and running to provide meaningful data. Our researchers, KARI, will endeavor toward this mission for a couple of months. After that stage, making the best use of the GEO-KOMPSAT-2B would be matter the most. The government and related agency should be fully prepared to utilize the data from the satellite so that people can actually feel tangible progress. That would be the best way to make a return for all the support and trust we received from the people of our country. I'm very pleased that the successful launch of GEO-KOMPSAT-2B have proven Korea as one of the top space technology countries and further elevating the confidence and pride of our people. Once again, let me express my deepest appreciation to everyone who dedicated today's successful launch, and thank you for all this support. 아리가토 고자이마스 and 맥시 복구. 감사합니다. 특히 한국 연구자분들 너무 고생 많이 하셨고요. 다시 한번 고생에 축하와 격려를 드립니다. 고맙습니다.
So once again, congratulations to everyone on the third successful Arianespace launch of the year. For customers on tonight's flight, VA252, Sky Perfect JSAT and KARI, this is the beginning of another important journey for your endeavors. I wish you the best success in realizing your ambitions. Looking ahead in Arianespace 2020 launch manifest, the month of March promises to be a busy one for Arianespace and for the CSG, as we are targeting 3 launches, 2 from here, 2 will lift off, 1 with Soyuz and the other one utilizing Vega on its initial SSMS rideshare mission from here, the European Space Center. And we will also have in March a 3rd mission from Baikonur with OneWeb. Thank you for your attention. All of us at Arianespace, we look forward to serving our customers in our upcoming launches during March, and we enjoy you a very good night or a very good day for those in Tokyo and Seoul today and Korea today. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And for good reason, Ariane 5 once again delivering the 2 new satellites on the Asian chartered JCSAT-17 and GEO-KOMPSAT-2B, one for telecom, one for environmental monitoring. Both new birds are winging their way to their orbital slots where they'll bring new services to more people. We're very glad you could share the evening with us, which was a very exciting one.
It was a very exciting evening, and a very big thank you to the teams here from Guyane Première who made it possible to bring you this live transmission of tonight's launch VA252 by Arianespace, the 3rd of the year. So thank you very much to all the teams, to our director Manuel, and to everyone who helped us bring you this show. We hope you enjoyed it. So as Luce Fabregat said, we'll be back in March with further launches. So for tonight, that's it from me, Lisa Peterson.
Joshua Jampo, till next time, goodbye from Kourou.
Goodbye. Goodbye to the drone.